Good morning, everybody. We're going to be going over the update for the latest on Hurricane Idalia that is expected to make landfall in Florida within the next 24 hours. We're expecting landfall about mid-morning, Wednesday morning, so we're going to be going over the latest update for that. I've dropped a couple of comments into the chat box. We have the link to download the app to stay up to date with the latest information that we're putting out all day, the next several days for Idalia and all the impacts that are coming with it. Be sure to drop any questions that you do have about this situation. If you have a question, it's likely somebody else has the exact same question too. So please drop that. We can get all the information out as fast as possible for everybody who is going to be impacted by the situation or who knows somebody that's impacted by the situation. If that's the case, if you're watching and you know somebody who is going to be impacted by Idalia, please be sure and send them the link to this live so they can get the latest information. We'll also be posting it for them to look back on later today as well for the information and then any links that they need to get the latest info if they're looking later today. Alrighty, let me double check. Let's see. Okay. So what you see behind me on the screen right now is our wind radar, which is showing the two hurricanes that we have going on. We have obviously Hurricane Idalia here in the Gulf of Mexico, as well as Major Hurricane Franklin here off the southeast coast. Luckily, Franklin is not going to make landfall at all in the U.S. It's going to be moving northeast over the next several days. The only issue that many might see across the southeast is some rip currents and high swells from Franklin, but that's no issue to the U.S. So what our focus is on is Idalia here in the Gulf of Mexico. So the wind radar showing here is the circulation of Idalia in a counterclockwise fashion with the gusty winds here across the area. Now, what we're going to be seeing over these next couple of days as Idalia moves to the northeast, we're going to be seeing it move closer and closer to the Florida Peninsula and actually strengthen into a major hurricane before making landfall tomorrow morning. Now I'm going to double check for any questions just as we're starting off. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so let's go into what the current look. We're looking at Idalia right now. What it is right now is it's a Category 1 hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. It's expected to make landfall in the Florida Peninsula in the Big Bend tomorrow morning, about mid-morning before noon, as a major hurricane. Right now, Idalia is a Category 1 hurricane with 80-mile-per-hour winds, and you can see here these winds are really gusting on the eastern side of Idalia as it's churning in a counterclockwise fashion. Now, Idalia, we mentioned earlier that it's going to be moving further into the Gulf of Mexico. The Gulf of Mexico is primed for development for tropical weather right now. There is a low shear, which would impact any more development. So low shear, it doesn't have to worry about shear, and it's got bath-like temperature waters all across the Gulf of Mexico where it's going to be heading into. Temperatures are in the mid-80s as you get closer and closer to the Florida coastline here. So it's going to have a lot to feed off of as it's moving northeast over these next 24 hours. That's why we're going to be seeing that rapid intensification over the next 24 hours. Let me move into what the National Hurricane Center is showing right now. Let's pull this up real quick here. Alrighty, so here we are looking at the projected track of Idalia as it moves to the northeast over the next 24 hours, and then eventually off the southeast coast in the later days of this week. Now, you can see right here that the projected landfall is somewhere along the Big Bend between here, this is about Alligator Point, all the way down to around Inglis. So that's the area that we're looking at right now for landfall for that center. So far as the forecast is projected. And we're going to be seeing it make landfall as a major hurricane over these next 24 hours. There are a lot of impacts that are coming with Idalia, and we're going to go over those now. So let's take a look here. We want to take a look at storm surge especially. So I'm going to pull that up right now. Storm surge is the water that is being pushed up into the coastline by this storm. And the other thing about the storm surge and it coming with Idalia is we also have the full moon impact right now as well. The full moon causes high tide to be even higher. So storm surge is already on top of high tide of what that level is. So an additional amount of water on top of high tide is what you can expect for the amount of storm surge moving in. So you can see the storm surge warning that is stretching from the central portion of the Panhandle all the way south of Tampa Bay and near getting down into Lee County, Collier County areas down here where they have the storm surge watches. So we're going to be seeing that storm surge move into this area, and let's take a look at just exactly how much water you can expect from Idalia as it does move in. Now the thing about storm surge and what it's caused is, so we have Idalia churning in a counterclockwise fashion, and as it moves northeast into the Big Bend of Florida, it's pushing that water into the Florida Peninsula. That's why you're seeing water come in addition to high tide as it does move forward. So we have up to 12 feet possible of storm surge right here across the Big Bend area. And unfortunately, that would cause a lot of life-threatening situations for these areas that are right along the coast here. So evacuation warnings are up, especially for those areas, and even into the 5 to 8 foot zone as far south as Tampa Bay, and into a little bit more into the central portions of the Panhandle here as well. That's 8 feet of water on top of high tide. So if you're looking at the shore, you have 8 feet of water on top of that. You don't want that wall of water coming in. This is why evacuation warnings have been posted. So we have up to 12 feet of storm surge coming into the Big Bend area. Additional issues that are coming is the rainfall that is coming from this area, or from Idalia into this area. So we could see 6 to 10 inches of rainfall in the area that we're going to be seeing that 12-foot storm surge move into as well in the Big Bend here. So we have up to 10 inches of rainfall on top of 12 feet of storm surge coming in here. So a lot of water is being pushed into this area by the storm and falling as rain as well. And that 6 to 10 inch range of rainfall is stretching all the way through the southeast here. And you can see it even get into the North Carolina coastline all the way up into the Outer Banks here, as well as 4 to 6 inches in the surrounding areas in the yellow across here as well. So that's flooding rains that are going to be causing a lot of problems in areas that don't drain very well, as well as low-lying areas that often see flooding as well. So something to keep an eye out for as Idalia does move up into the north-northeast as well as the northeast once it moves out. So this area too in Florida, we're going to take a look at the drought really quick. Florida and a large part of the southeast, many are experiencing some drought conditions. So this is another thing we want to keep an eye on too. Areas that already have poor draining are going to have issues with even more draining due to the fact that it's been pretty dry in those areas. When you have a dry ground, it does have issues soaking in rain and any other water quickly. So that water does run off and cause flash flooding and flooding issues as well. Another thing you want to keep an eye out for. So we've got storm surge, we've got the flooding rains as well, all the way across the southeast here. And I want to show as well with that storm surge, the inundation that is going to be moving in here. We can see this on the map. This is provided by NOAA. The red zone here is up to 12 feet of storm surge moving all across these areas in the Big Bend. This is from, and I apologize if I pronounce these incorrectly, Homosassa Springs all the way northward through Inglis, Yankeetown, into the state parks that are around here, Suwannee, Horseshoe Beach, Steinhatchee and Taylor, and all the way northward here. You can see the inundation of up to 12 feet of storm surge moving through. So these areas are going to be underwater for a bit as Idalia does move through, as it does push that water into those areas in addition to high tide. And you can see the up to 1 foot of storm surge is even a little bit further inland across Levy County here, and even further down into Inglis, these 1 foot areas as well. So 1 foot on top of high tide as well, also a large amount. This is why we're seeing many evacuation orders across the area. And let's get into that now, how many evacuation orders we have. So far, mandatory evacuations, we have 10 counties under mandatory evacuations across the Gulf Coast of Florida. Now that includes, at this time of me looking, Citrus County, Dixie County, Franklin County, Gulf County, Lafayette County, Levy, Pasco, Pinellas, Suwannee, and Taylor counties, all under mandatory evacuations. You can get all that information too here on the floridadisaster.org, where they're posting the mandatory evacuations as well as the voluntary and suggested evacuations in this area. You want to know what your zone is for evacuations as well. If you've not already heard if you're evacuating, check this site and check with your local government to see the evacuation orders for this area. And you want to make sure you're just taking that seriously. We're still less than a year from Hurricane Ian that moved through Southwest Florida. So, we had a lot of life-threatening storm surge move through Southwest Florida as well. People in evacuation orders, mandatory evacuations, unfortunately, lost lives due to that life-threatening storm surge. So we want to take lesson from that. And this is going to be a similar situation as far as storm surge. You want to make sure you're taking all the safety precautions you can and get out early. All right, there's going to be additional impacts from Hurricane Idalia. I'm going to double check for any other questions at the moment. Perfect. Alrighty. Let's take a look here. So we do have additional issues coming from Idalia. So we have the severe weather threat from the outer rain bands that are going to be moving through. So we're going to see severe thunderstorms that can include gusty winds, obviously, from Idalia, as well as tornadoes, fast-moving tornadoes. So not only are we seeing storm surge, gusty winds in general from Idalia and all that flooding rain, we're going to be seeing tornadoes as well, fast-moving tornadoes. So make sure, in addition to having your weather alerts on in your app, make sure you have at least three ways to receive a weather warning in these areas, so that you can be sure that you have the latest information, especially if there's a tornado on the ground and is moving towards your area. That, in addition to the hurricane, is a lot to keep track of, so you can make sure you have those alerts switched on. You'll know that quickly, so that you can get safe from that. So we have that slight risk for severe weather already today here across the Gulf Coast of Florida and into the central portions, just touching Orlando and just near Jacksonville, but isolated severe weather all across the Florida Peninsula, except for the far western panhandle. You're going to be seeing some isolated severe weather even today, just from those outer rain bands moving in from Idalia. By tomorrow, we do see that slight risk expand and increase all the way up into the outer banks of North Carolina. And you also have it just touching Fort Myers down here as an isolated risk. So even more impacts coming for tomorrow for severe weather. So in addition to the landfall expected tomorrow about mid-morning, we're going to be seeing that risk for tornadoes from the outer bands, heavy rainfall, the flooding from that, as well as those gusty winds. So big situation coming here from Idalia all across this area. And just to check real quick, we're going to make sure on day 3 we are clearing out as far as severe weather. Okay, by day 3, you could have some general thunderstorms across the southeast. But the big severe weather to be looking out for is for today and tomorrow, as Idalia does move further north and northeast. I'm going to double check to make sure we are all good here. Okay, perfect. Okay. Let me double check to make sure I've got everything we've got. Alrighty. So we are going to be posting a lot of information on Idalia today and tomorrow. I'm going to be doing another live tomorrow to give an update on what's going on as it starts to make landfall. Let's pull up the wind radar here so you can just see what's going on with Idalia at this moment. So we're going to be having all of those updates out for you today. Check our social media. I put all the links in the description below this live. You can find them all there. Be sure to subscribe just so you get all the latest information, because we're going to be putting it out on YouTube as well. Download the app. It's completely for free, and you can see the forecast, especially concerning Idalia, up to the next 4 days, completely for free. You can get all this information and get hurricane alerts as well, so that you can be most prepared for these situations. Now, those who are evacuating, those who are voluntarily evacuating, make sure, because likely today is the last day to be able to get out safely, make sure you have all your important documents. You have copies of those, physical copies of those that are in Ziploc bags or just plastic bags that can stay safe from any water damage. Extra food, extra water, medications, any prescriptions. Make sure you think about your pets as well. Food, water, anything they may need as well, leashes. You want to make sure you have all your documentation for you and your family, and you have plenty to get by over the next couple of days, especially for that area across the Big Bend where mandatory evacuations have been posted. I'm going to list off again the areas where we are seeing mandatory evacuations. Counties include Citrus County, Dixie County, Franklin County, Gulf, Lafayette, Levy, Pasco, Pinellas, Suwannee, and Taylor counties, all under mandatory evacuations along their areas that have those zones that are requiring mandatory evacuations. Check in with your local government, see where that's at. This is a serious situation we're going to be monitoring over the next couple of days as Idalia does move into the Gulf Coast of Florida. Be sure to drop any more questions you do have. We're going to be here and checking your questions throughout the day. So be sure to drop those.